I was not a human being in Atlantis the way I am now. In Atlantis, I was a light being. I had come from another star system, from Arcturus. I was an extraterrestrial, but not this kind of extraterrestrial. I was this kind of extraterrestrial, a being filled with light, bliss, and love. Now, I wasn't the only light being in Atlantis. Atlantis was very different than the way things are now. At that time, we could go into different existing physical beings. So, for example, we could go in a cat and see what it felt like to be in a cat. Or we could go into a lizard and experience what that was like. Or we could go into an eagle to see what it felt like to soar as a great bird of prey. And we really enjoyed mixing our vibrations with other things existing here, because that is the way we explored when we explored in the universe as the light beings. As light beings, we didn't have bodies. We didn't go, oh, I'm going to study this with my eyes and with my mind, because we were vibrational beings. So we melded with things and felt their vibration. So when we came to Earth, we were exploring still by vibration. I had been in a number of bodies at what one had been this pixie-faced frog being, another had been this woman with a child, and another had been a scientist who worked with the great and mighty crystal in Atlantis that created the power. Now, we could tell that there was going to be a time when the whole island nation was going to have some really challenging earth upheavals, because they've been going on for a while. It's like how the west coast of the United States has earth upheavals. So in Atlantis, we were going through earth upheavals at that time. And I had an escape route. And that was that I would pull out of the bodies I was in, and then I had to travel quickly to safety lands. And this light being flew through the air and fell into this serpent's mouth. Yet now we use an airplane. We walk into an airplane, and it has a motor, and it goes on the runway, and then it takes off. Well, we weren't human beings then, and we didn't need an airplane. We didn't need to force things outside of ourselves to do things. We could just make this agreement with nature. When we work with the vibration of existing beings on Earth, we work with them for their qualities. And the quality of a serpent, one of the great things it can do is that it has this strike ability, and therefore it could create momentum. And then I was flying through space, and I ended up in safety lands. I had gone to where the pyramid was being built, except that it was surrounded by water, not desert, as they are now. And in the safety lands, my light being went into an existing being. I was then in a woman's body with sort of a toga outfit on. So this was my scariest memory of Atlantis. I fell into the serpent's mouth. I became obsessed with that memory. It was just so, this has to be the craziest thing on earth. And I was also obsessed with going to see the Great Pyramids, but my husband would not go to Egypt. And he said, you know, there's pyramids in Yucatan. So he took me to Yucatan. By now, I had heard about the feathered serpent with a man in its mouth. My main thing in going to Yucatan was to find an image, the feathered serpent with a man in its mouth. The reason they put feathers on the serpent was because the serpent can fly, or it can create flight. And I thought if I could look at a feathered serpent with a man in its mouth, I wouldn't be insane anymore, having had this memory of falling into the serpent's mouth. We went off to Tulum, which is on the east coast, the Caribbean coast of Yucatan. Tulum is a ruined site that has a castillo, a castle, that is like an outlook over the ocean there. I asked the guide, "Do you have a feathered serpent with a man in its mouth?" And he said, "No." We moved on. The next place we went to was Coba, which is a huge ruined site, and there is a magnificent pyramid in Coba that I have climbed. I'm freaked out once I got to the top because, I don't know, it was like 12 stories high. And I'm not one of those guys that make skyscrapers and is really comfortable being 12 stories up in the air. So when I got up there and looked around, I went, "Oh my God, I think I'm going to die." But I was okay. I had to sit down, calm myself down. And then I went down the pyramid. I'd seen other people doing this, going down the pyramid on their bottom. I asked the guide, "Do you have a feathered serpent with a man in its mouth?" And he said, "No." Now we went to Chichen Itza. Chichen Itza has a huge pyramid, which is dedicated to the feathered serpent god Kukulkan. Flanking the stairs going up to the top is two serpents' bodies. Well, when I saw this serpent, I got a little bit encouraged. I asked the guide, "Do you have a feathered serpent with a man in its mouth?" And he said, "No." The next place we went was Uxmal. Uxmal is a different ruin site because its main pyramid does not have sharp corners. And it also has an unusual creation story there, which I'm going to talk about in a subsequent video. Because of this unusual pyramid and the unusual creation story, I was like really hopeful that this could be the place. So again, we asked the guide, expecting them to say, "No, we don't have that here," or "It was here, but now it's in a museum somewhere." So we said, "Do you have an image of a feathered serpent with a man in its mouth?" And the guy said, "Yes, we do. Let me take you to it." Let me tell you a little bit about this ruined site in Uxmal. It's a huge site. There is a governor's palace, and there are many other temples there. There is something called the Nunnery Quadrangle. Now, that is just the name the Spanish explorers called it. Over on the farthest of these buildings, on the top part of it, is a serpent. In the serpent's mouth was a man's head. Oh, the other thing that was really exciting is that around the head of the serpent with the man in its mouth are stylized images of stars. It was exactly in my memory. And the reason they made the stars was because it was flying through the sky. The reason they put feathers on the serpent was because the serpent can fly, or it can create flight. That was exactly my memory of Atlantis. And then I went, well, I'm not the only one. Okay, I'm not insane. My memory is likely real, and these Mayan people likely have a similar memory. And my assumption is that Atlanteans traveled to Yucatan because there's the Atlantic Ocean in the middle. So here's where Atlantis is. So it made sense that Atlanteans would have traveled to Yucatan, the one side, and so that's Kukulkan, the feathered serpent, and the serpent with the wings, and Egypt's on the other. Hello. It's Carol Ann Chapman, and I've written about my experiences in my book, When We Were Gods, which is a chronicle of my memories of Atlantis. Great talking with you. See you soon. Toodaloo. Bye-bye.